Hey everyone. Okay, so one of the key points right out of the gate with this chapter is we get more of a lore dive into Nika from Elbaf's interpretation, and for them, Nika is seen as both a savior and a destroyer depending on how the world shifts and changes, with Ja Rule even going so far as to say as but both Loki and Harald both attempted to become the figure of this prophecy. Now, a couple things to note from this. The first that is that at this point, it's a fair assumption the sacred devil fruit Loki attempted to covet, at least if I'm understanding things correctly, it is potentially the gum gum human fruit Nika model, that which in itself, I think what's being implied here is that the fruit's origins are from Elbaf, given how its populace has an entire religion dedicated to the sun god. The only thing I am still trying to puzzle together is if that is the case, how it fits into the timeline of falling into the government's hands and then later being acquired by Shanks. Because the only way that part makes sense is if the fruit ended up lost at sea after the last great disaster that faced Elbaf, and then, as fate would have it, ended up in Shanks' possession when he raided the Marine convoy, only only learning about the fruit's importance after he stopped Loki. But regardless of how this all fits into the story, the one thing that is made clear from this chapter is that this does kind of put Luffy and Loki kind of at the center of all this. And in Loki's case, it really does kind of paint him in a more shades of gray, but also shifts him ever so slightly now towards the idea that this chapter is painting more picture that there were noble intentions behind Loki's actions to obtain the sacred field fruit, and maybe even now, however much he's talking about bringing the world to ruin, there is still a noble intent behind those actions, because circling back to Ja Rule's interpretation of Nika's legend, if you'll notice, Oda seems to be keeping it rather ambiguous as to whether the destroyer of Nika's legend is the truly evil option compared to being the savior, and the only with the only ones like really holding that perspective are the average citizen who feed it through the filter that their hatred of Loki. So it's like it does feel like there is this chapter right now is painting much more of a picture that there is more to what Loki was doing than once again this arc is painting more of there was more of what Loki was doing than we may have first perceived. Um, with that said, one thing I also really liked about this chapter is Zoro taking Luffy aside to reveal to him and the other crew that yes, Luffy has met Loki, and I love how rational Zoro is being about this, which is to say, though the Straw Hats are breaking into the castle probably to get a key that frees Loki and whatnot, Zoro very clearly sets the ground rules, which is that they'll only free him if he's telling the truth, which granted, given the certain circumstances I'll get into, it might be a bit of a moot point, and regardless of whether he's telling the truth or not, there is still an unease about setting Loki free in general that does still concern me, but even saying that, again, I like how Zoro's rationale is from the perspective that Luffy is being far too reckless and impatient in his desire to see Shanks, that I don't think Luffy's fully understanding the potential implications of setting Loki free, whether they're good or bad. And it's like this arc right now, this arc is dealing very much in the idea of perspective and perception, and unfortunately, the perception of Loki is not a great one. And regardless of how it happens, there are going to be consequences for this. And yeah, speaking of Loki though, we cut back to Shanks and the girl with him, Gunko, who's who's now revealed to be a member of the Holy Knights, and with both of them attempting to recruit Loki into that organization. At least that's my understanding of the context correctly. Of course, Loki pretty much gives both of them a finger, saying he's not interested. So yeah, to start at this point, it's more than obvious this isn't Shanks, but the question is, who is he? And I'm inclined to believe it is someone related to him, likely a brother or something like that. So many have theorized, but that just raises more questions about Shanks' history now, but also answering a few about how he has some manner of pull with the government, regardless of him being a pirate and an emperor. Like whoever this person who looks like Shanks is, it is clearly someone related to him, and that in itself does expose Shanks as being some kind of having some kind of former connection to the government and still somehow holding, which is why even the elders kind of hold him in some reverence, even though he is a pirate. But regardless of who this is, one thing is certain, which is that this is going to cause all manner of confusion for Luffy when Luffy meets up with this person who clearly bears a resemblance to Shanks. But of course, the bigger question is why the government is fixated on Loki to begin with. Because even if it's paranoia, them sending these envoys to meet Loki kind of almost like validates the point that there is some truth to Loki's words about Nika, and even even maybe maybe just his ramblings about wanting to destroy the wanting to shake the world up because maybe it needs to be, and just overall the legend of the sun god from Elbaf's interpretation feels like there more being validated than what's being disproven here now with the government taking the action that they are. And yeah, outside of that, not much more to mention. Rodo is still an annoyance, but at least he's proving somewhat useful to the Straw Hats by being their guide in this chapter. Also, I'm not going to lie, Luffy's conversation with Jarl about Nika really sticks out to me in a way where maybe I'm overthinking it and it's really just Luffy's ineptitude and inability to connect the dots, but it's really feeding into my own personal theory that Luffy might not be completely aware when he's transformed into Nika, but I'm mostly still putting it on Luffy's very simplistic mindset that even though he wields the very obvious power of Nika, he just doesn't realize the connection, which does beg the question when he will make the connection, because I don't want to say it's getting annoying, but it is getting to the point where him not understanding the gravity of the power he wields and the legacy he holds is kind of, it's getting to the point where he can't just kind of like cover his hands over his ears, say blah blah blah, I'm not listening. Like it's he there has to at some point there has to be some kind of recognition from Luffy that yeah, he's wielding the power of a god, but and is just maybe just not caring. But I guess when you look at the legacy of Nika as well, it also kind of fits in with it kind of fits that the most carefree person is the one wielding the power of Nika, which is basically very much Nika's legacy as well. But it's like, so, but maybe I think what I'm kind of hoping for here is that maybe it's going to be a little bit part of like Luffy's development or journey here in Elbaf, which is to some degree there will be some acknowledgement of the truth of his power. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Blue Sky, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Night signing off. Later, everyone.